Thank you guys so much for coming out today. Again, I really appreciate that. Looks like I had the perfect number of chairs here. You guys are acting like sardines. I really appreciate that. You guys are ready to learn. So, by a show of hands, I just want to kind of get an idea of the room. How many people have done a rehab before? All right, so that's a good, about half the room. That's great. And then out of that, how many have done new construction before? 1, 2. So wow. You built your own home?
Yeah, well, I had.
Sure. You weren't swinging the hammer? Okay.
And I just partnered with a builder.
Does building a log cabin count?
I don't want to have people stand.
I built a log cabin.
Yeah, okay, well, I'll count that. So, all right, we got 1, 2, 3. And then, okay, Lydia as well. So, kind of.
Yeah.
My dad.
You built a shed in your backyard.
That house is still standing.
Well, so as you can see, when it comes to rehabbing, you've got a lot of competition. When it comes to new construction, I mean, look around, there's not really many investors doing that. I mean, we saw this room, there's a lot of rehabbers, and the reality is, believe it or not, new construction is not that much harder, and in some ways is easier than rehabbing or gut rehabbing. So I'm going to kind of go over the process and some of the pitfalls and that sort of thing, and then just walk you through this project in particular, and then give you guys some tips too. So is that something you guys would be interested to learn about?
Sure.
Awesome, awesome. So we'll get started. This is going to be weird because I got to stand here, but gut rehabbing, you know, when I'm referring to gut rehabbing, I'm talking about taking it down to the studs, doing new electrical, new plumbing, a lot of times HVAC. There's definitely pros and cons with that. I mean, a lot of people probably have experience with not necessarily doing a gut rehab. Obviously, if you're doing a lipstick rehab, which I call, you know, paint, carpet, you might do some tile in the bathrooms and that sort of thing. I actually think that's obviously easier than new construction. But when you get into gut rehabs, it is my opinion after we've done this, that actually new construction is easier, and I'll go into why. So the pros of gut rehabbing is that the work up front on a gut rehab is actually a lot less than it is on a new construction. There's a lot less paperwork that you need to do. The permit process is a lot easier. And then another pro is if you can get an easy permit, it's very quick. But you know, a lot of times the city, if they know that you're doing electrical and plumbing, they're not going to issue you necessarily an easy permit. Now the cons, I mean, how many people in here have done a rehab and then something happens or you find something that you didn't expect? I mean, every person in this room. That's a huge con with doing a gut rehab. There's always unknowns. Even when you're doing a small, you know, we even do condo renovations, and even with the small condo renovations, sometimes you're finding things and unknowns. So there's always unknowns when you're doing rehabbing. And sometimes there's even, you may have a permit, and then that permit may actually, you may have to reapply if they come in. For example, we did a house, it was a gut rehab. There was no attic access whatsoever to the house, and so we had no way before we bought it to inspect the attic. And come to find out, of course, the owners failed to mention the fact that they had a fire in the home. And so when the city came in, they said, nope, you got to replace, you know, not only do you have to replace the wood, but you're also going to have to reapply for the permit as well. So then, because we didn't have that on the, obviously on the plans, so then just that alone was a 3-month delay, not because of construction, it was a permit delay. So again, those types of things can happen when you do rehabbing. And to be honest, doing gut rehabbing is very hard to duplicate. How many gut rehabbing companies do you know that do it in almost every state? Meaning investors like us that are rehabbing in almost every state. Very few. Now think of home builders how many home builders are in at least half of the states in the United States? There's probably at least a dozen that are doing it at a high level and are doing it in multiple states. Why? It's because new construction is very easily duplicatable versus gut rehabbing is not. And then another con is it's very difficult to get bids sometimes on a gut rehab versus new construction. The pros is that for the most part there's no unknowns. You know you're going to have to do everything, you budget for everything. You know, things may come up in the project, but it's not something that is going to surprise you necessarily. If you plan for it, you plan for it accordingly, there's very, very few surprises with new construction. You can get bids very easily. Once you start working with contractors that do new construction, a lot of the contractors don't even necessarily have to step foot on the project to give you a bid. I mean, how many people have tried to bid something out and then contractors don't even show up when they're supposed to? This, doing new construction, also helps you. It's a much easier way to get bids on projects than doing a gut rehab, because the gut rehab, they actually have to come in and see your project before they can even give you a number. Even if they're looking at the plans and that sort of thing, it's much more difficult with a gut rehab. Again, new construction is very easy to scale. Subs, so meaning subcontractors, plumbers, electricians, drywallers, they like doing new construction because for the you've got straight walls. You know, how many have gone into a gut rehab and the house, just for whatever reason, over time, there's nothing you can do that maybe the house bows in a little bit, and so you've got issues with uneven floors. It's much easier for contractors. The subs like it. Everything's new. It's a blank slate. They can come in, get out, and that's another reason why you can get better pricing from your subs with new construction as well. And then the timeline, once you understand the right steps to do new construction, you can actually do new construction in some cases faster than you can a gut rehab. If you're doing new construction and you don't know what you're doing, that won't be the case. But if you have a great system in place, you can actually there's construction companies out here in Chicago which will buy a lot with a house on it, knock the house down, and then resell it within 6 months. There's very few people doing gut rehabs that are doing it at that level. There's a lot of new construction guys here in Chicago that are doing that. Now, of course, the cons is that the permit process does take longer because there's some more initial steps. I'll go into that further in the presentation. And again, with all those steps, if you don't follow a checklist or you don't know what those steps are, it can, it's a little bit of trial and error once you're figuring it out. But once you get the process down, then it's going to be the same thing for every project after that. And then again, the timeline, if you're new to it and you're kind of figuring it out, it will take you longer initially. But once you figure those steps out, you can really speed through new construction. So this was the home initially. It had a lovely doll collection, a hoarder house. The house was essentially in the lot, so it was a house. It straddled two lots. It was one house. It was on the lot next to us here, but part of it went onto this lot. So if we wanted to rehab that and keep that house, we would have not been able to build another house because it crossed that lot line. And even though this was actually one lot when we bought it, so it was a 50 wide, but lots in Chicago are 25 wide. It crossed that 25, I think, by like 2 feet. So again, if we wanted to build a house next to it, we wouldn't have been able to do that. So this house was literally, this whole yard was like a jungle. Every time, the neighbors told us, anytime there was a storm, the trees would fall down, knock out the power lines. The one lady, when we bought it and we took the trees down, she was almost crying because she was like, thank you, finally somebody bought this, because every time there was a storm, our power would go out. So thank you guys so much. And when we first started this, we even had some people literally camping in the backyard. So it literally was like a forest in the city of Chicago. And then the house that was here was actually the original farmhouse for like the area. So this was originally one of the oldest houses in the neighborhood. So I guess we took away history and we knocked down that house. But it was well worth it because that house was literally just crumbling apart. And it wasn't like it was a beautiful, farmhouse. It was an old farmhouse. If you know anything about farmhouses, usually they're not built with permits versus the house next door was done probably by union. It was a brick, house. This was a frame structure. It was a farmhouse, so it had a lot of issues that your typical houses in Chicago don't have. So that's why in this particular instance, we decided, we had an initial, are we just going to rehab this one house, or are we going to knock it down and go two? And of course, the numbers just made a lot more sense to build two houses versus just doing the one. So the problems with the house that was here, it was small, it was very ugly. The basement height was very low. I think it was like 6 feet, so I couldn't even stand up straight in the basement. So if we wanted to have a usable basement, we'd have to dig down and then underpin. And then the house, of course, was falling apart. It needed everything, just like any other gut rehab, but this wasn't a house with good bones. And then, of course, the forest in the backyard. Now, the opportunities with this house are the same exact as the problems, because the reality is, when there's that many issues with the house, and we're only competing with a lot of rehabbers, there's not as many investors buying new construction homes that can do new construction. So our competition on this was very low. So it's not like we had a bidding war on this. We were talking to the owner, and there was one other developer talking to the owner. That was it. So because of that, we were able to get a really good deal on the house. And of course, having the double wide lot gave us the opportunity to, up our return quite a bit by building two houses. So this house, hit the lights again. This is after we cleared the house again. Now you can kind of see the condition of the home. Again, this is really rare for the area to have. The length is like 185 feet. So this is, so it's a really long lot. And just the land, and I'm talking about the landscaping to remove the trees, I think was like $18,000.
Was it an R4?
No, R3.
R3.
R3. So you can see like one of the stumps there. I think that stump there is even growing into the neighbor's garage. They're really cool about it. They're actually building a new garage. And like, what's pretty cool too, when you rehab the houses, you see the neighbors. They're starting to do stuff. They're putting a new garage in. So, the whole community starts coming up when you're doing this. But, yeah, it was a mess. And that was part of the problem too. The excavators couldn't come in. That's a different contractor from the person that's going to tear down the house. So again, that was an extra step on this project. So now this is leveling the land and that sort of thing. There you can see on the right, those are the footings on the top right, and then you can see the two ice rinks on the bottom there. That's where we're sitting right now. So what you see on the bottom is the black on the bottom perimeter of the wall. It's called a dimple board. So what that does is any moisture that may get through the foundation, that's going to then go into the sump pump.
You built them at the same time?
Yeah, we built them and then we staggered them about 2 weeks apart.
Saved some money. Doing two projects.
Yeah, and then that also having two projects right next to each other, we were able to get better pricing from our contractors, because literally it's not like, hey, I've got another job for you. You say that line to a contractor, it's like, no, you've got another house right next to you. They just move their tools over and then head over to the next house. So you're able to get better pricing when you can find a property like this. So one of the things we want to do in the future is where we find, maybe a property that has 3, 4, 5, 6 lots right next to each other. That's where, that's really what we want to do moving forward. You know, instead of doing one house here, one house on the south side, one house in Hoffman Estates, one house in, you know, Glen Ellen, one house in Downers Grove, I'd rather do 5, 10 houses right next to each other. Mhm. So there's only one pin, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. So in order to build 2 houses, if one house is straddling both properties, you're not, the process to get the permit to build 2 houses is very, very difficult. So we didn't apply for permits until the top left picture to build, because then it's very easy to get the permit. But when there's one house and it sits on both lots, you know, good luck getting a permit. It's going to take you 6, 7, 8 months just for that permit. So get the demo permit, knock the house down, then apply for the permit. There you can see, so once you start, so once the ground is level, yeah, go ahead.
So how long did it take you to get to go through that permit process, since you waited for the demo to take place?
After the demo permit, the new construction permit was like 3 weeks. It was very quick, very quick.
How long did it take you to demo the house?
Well, the big thing was the demo was, I don't know, maybe to actually demo it, maybe a day, but then, you know, cleaning it up and all that, like a week.
A week. Okay, that's better.
But you do get the plans ready?
Yeah, we're doing all the preliminary work while, you know, the demo's going on and all that. So I'll walk you through all the steps too, in the slides coming up. So once you have, once you start building, once you start doing the foundation, actually, you need to have a fence around your property, because the worst thing that can happen is a little kid falls into the house and gets hurt.
And insurance.
Oh yeah, and insurance. So you do need to have fencing around. And even when you're doing gut rehabs, you're really supposed to have fencing as well. Most investors out there don't, because it is an extra expense. But even when you're gut rehabbing, technically you're supposed to have a fence around the project. So there you can see they're framing for up here. He's in the basement. And then that's my brother. So my brother actually managed this project, so we didn't hire a general contractor to do the job for us. So we actually self-managed this job. So my brother at the top right is talking with the framer and that sort of thing.
Did you utilize an architect to help in any of that?
Oh, you definitely have to have an architect to even get the permits and that.
Did you use a box plan, or was this a custom plan?
Custom plan. We told them what we wanted, and then they built it for us. So, and then now you can see on the top left, the framing is up. There we're talking to our HVAC guy. And then like this whole yard, you know, was really became a mess, you know, when it gets wet, because having this awesome yard was a great thing, you know, for the buyers, but for doing the work, it was a mess, because they, you know, they park in here to get stuff in, and it just tore up that yard. So having that extra long lot was actually a challenge for us. We had to put down, at one point we had to put down, what you call like wood, plywood, yeah, but stronger than that, so that, you know, trucks can pull over the mud.
But that's what helped you be able to build the house, the other house, by your lot being bigger.
No, well, why did, so 25 is standard for the width, so both are 25.
No, density, as far as the density, being able to have a certain amount of units on.
Well,
So you just split it?
So we split it right down the middle, 25, 25.
Oh.
So if this was a 125 long, which is standard in Chicago, we could have still built 2 houses. It just wouldn't have the enormous yard that we have now. And it'd have a smaller yard.
Excuse me, can I ask your architectural plans, you said those were custom?
Mhm.
So the 2 houses are just mirror images of each other?
Correct, yeah,
They're
they're-
the same. Can you tell me what that would cost to have the architectural plans drawn up?
Off the top of my head, it's interesting, because new construction is actually easier than rehabbing, but the prints actually cost more. So I don't know the cost right off the top of my head, but I think it was around $7 per house, somewhere around there.
Why do you charge you another $7 for the second house, which is the same thing?
It's just, you should become an architect. Because, well, part of it also includes them helping you apply for the permits and their expediter fee. So us getting our permit in 3 weeks that's very extremely valuable to have that. So
Architects are worth it.
yeah, so a good architect is worth the money.
Hey, Josh, they charge for their license though on
Yeah.
each,
Yeah.
on each house, so,
Also 7 for one
you know.
house is not that, it's not a big fee, so
Yeah.
you gotta get, you know. for one.
Yeah, and Steve brings up a point, they've got their license on the line for each one, even if they're the same identical.
Okay.
So there you can see we've got the electrical in, we've got the plumbing in, the rough, we've got the electrical box there in that back bedroom. Now we have the garages up, drywall's going up. On the bottom left where it's sanded. We've got these front porches built in these pictures, and I'll walk you through all the steps too. Got both porches finished, got the tiler in there, the cabinets. And then too, something about Chicago, which you can kind of see here. Chicago is very serious about their, so when you walk out and you look at the porches, they have those extra heavy duty brackets. They're made out of the same material, like a black box in a plane. They're pretty much made out of this. It's like indestructible. They're way, way overkill, but that's just what Chicago makes you do. So in the future, and I'll talk about it in a little bit, is actually eliminating a way to eliminate the front porch. And I'll tell you why that's important and where we learned. And then, of course, this is the house as you see it now. So in this, scenario of us, I don't want to say flipping, but building these two homes, there's a lot of people. I always like to say who wins in every situation. So obviously, our investors win. We used private financing as well as bank financing to finance this. So our investors are getting a return on it. The contractors, we employed quite a few contractors to be on this job. So obviously the neighbors, they love the fact that there's not this eyesore with the forest next to them where the power will go out. This neighborhood, which is Portage Park, it borders on Old Irving Park. The city of Chicago, their tax revenue has increased 10 to 20-fold. The person that owned this had like a senior freeze, homestead, and senior freeze and senior exemption. So their taxes were literally like $900 a year for a double lot. So by building these two houses, Chicago's tax revenue is going to just skyrocket.
You're doing your part.
So if you get a lower tax bill, it's probably because of these houses. So of course, the housing market here, again, once we started doing work, the neighbors are doing work. Obviously, the buyers, when they buy the home, we believe in putting out a quality product. There's still some touch-ups. You may have seen some things that still need to be done. Our painters, after we have them do some final touches and that sort of thing that need to be done. And of course, our company, we're going to do pretty well on this. So I'm going to walk you through the steps. This is going to be kind of lengthy, but I'm just going to kind of walk you through the steps we did on this project. So step number one is we put the project under contract. The next thing, we were working with the architect to get the architectural prints, and essentially, and we're also developing the materials list at the same time. Now, some of the trim electrical fixtures and trim plumbing fixtures, we didn't necessarily have to have that picked out at this point, but we have all of our rough materials list picked out. When you're building new construction, you also need to send letters to the adjacent properties. making them aware that you are going to be doing new construction as well. So there is a process with that, and you send out a letter. Very simple, and then it also has to be, I don't know what you call it, when they sign for it.
You have your attorney?
Certified.
Certified
letter.
So it has to be certified, just, protect your assets, essentially.
Did your attorney do that? You could have an attorney take.
You can have the attorney, we did it, it's a simple letter.
How long it takes to get back the signature?
I think you just gotta give them, I forget what the exact numbers, like, again, we're doing this while it's under contract, so a month notice or 2 weeks, it's not that much, so you can do it while you have it under contract. And then you can already, like in this case, the utilities were off, we activated the utilities, because you have to have the utilities in your name before you can actually disconnect them. So you actually need to, it's interesting, you need to activate them to disconnect them. So, we also had to, we started getting bids for different trades. So to do new construction, you need to get, LOI stands for letter of intent. You need to have a contract and letter of intent with the masonry, so the person doing the foundation essentially. The electrician, same thing. The plumber, the same thing. And the same thing for the HVAC. Without that, if you don't have that letter of intent, you can't even apply for your permits. So you need those.
When you say contract, you say contract from the masonry, electrician,
And the letter of
and the letter of
intent,
intent.
before you can even apply for the permit.
Really?
Correct.
That's interesting.
So those are the 4 most important trades.
So do you mean that you don't use a contract with general contractor, but have a contract with every of these?
So if a general let's say you hired a general contractor, he would need to have those same people do the same thing as well to apply for the permit.
So, but you sign the contract directly with the, say, the electrician?
Yes, we did in this case because we were the general contractor.
Also, you do have a general contract license?
Yeah, we have a general contractor.
Oh, okay.
But you can have the GC
Yeah.
get those letters for you if you're working with a general contractor. You need that to apply for the permit when you do
Understood.
new construction. You want, Derek?
What are they saying in the letter?
That, this is my license number. I plan to do this work here on this property. It's just essentially saying that they're gonna be the ones that are gonna be doing the work.
It's kind of like part of their application.
You need that to submit for the permit. There's different demo forms that you need to file with the city of Chicago. You need to have a special kind of survey too. So when you do new construction, you also need to have the setbacks of the homes next to you as well. So you gotta get a special kind of survey. So we ordered the survey, you can even order the survey way before this, but that also needs to be submitted as well. And so you need the setbacks of the homes, 2 sides on each side of your projects. The surveyor will do it. Usually actually attorneys can help you find a surveyor. Actually all attorneys have a survey company they use, but you gotta get the survey with the setbacks on the properties 2 houses away from you on both sides.
That's according to your plan, right?
What's that?
That survey should, according to your build plan, right? Or how do you define the setback?
So the setbacks meaning is how far is the house set back from the street?
According to your new building plan, right?
Correct. So what the city's looking for, they don't want, the city likes conformity. They like, houses to be in the same row. So that's why they're looking at what's the setback of the 2 properties on both sides. And then they're also, depending on the projects, like for example, if you're in a neighborhood, let's say it's all 1-story frame, let's just say frame houses, and you want to build this massive 2-story house. A lot of times the city is not going to give you that permit because the houses next to you are small. So this over here is great for us because it's a bigger, it's a taller building, it's a 2-flat. And then this house over here, it's like 1.5 story, but it was good enough for the city where it's not these two monstrosity homes, and you've got only single-story homes next to us.
So so did you go back as far as you could possibly go? or-
No, we could have built a much bigger house here, but
Okay.
this neighborhood,
It doesn't warrant
it
it.
doesn't warrant it. You know, like if you're in Lincoln Park, you're trying to squeeze every square foot out of a property you possibly can.
Square foot is this?
So this is 1,000 square feet of floor. Like here, we could have built, you know, it's an R3, so the factor is 0.9. So, let me just do the math. So 185 by 25 times 0.9. So we could have built a 4,000 square foot home, but that's above grade. That's not counting the basement. So we could have essentially gone back twice as
2,000
far.
square feet. Yeah.
It would have been a massive, in total it would have been a 6,000 square foot house.
Wow.
You're not going to get a return on a 6,000
No.
square foot home in Forest Park.
Now, unless you plan on living there and enjoy it yourself.
Yeah. So, like, for example, what you see in Lincoln Park a lot of times, when people do new construction, is they'll list, like, they'll have a small lot. They'll have maybe like a 25 by 100 lot in some cases. And then you look at it and it says the square feet is like 5,000 square feet. You're like, how is it 5,000 square feet? Well, the way that they cheat, in a way, is they have this entire basement, since they don't count that as square footage, the basement will go connect all the way to the garage. So they'll have this massive basement, essentially, which is finished space in Chicago. So that's just a little trick if you guys are looking to go in a smaller lot, you can make that basement bigger to give you square footage. Did I go through those? Okay, so, and then of course, you also have to remove the utilities before, so when the I don't want to call it Bobcat, but the excavator, when it comes here, you can't have the electricity on, right? It's very dangerous. So the utilities need to be then not just turned off, they need to be disconnected. And then we want to have that all done before closing. So again, in this case, we applied for the demo permit. Once we did that, we ordered and installed the fence. You know, once you're excavating and knocking down the house, you need to have. And then, if anyone here, I see a lot of people taking pictures. That's fine. If you're not, if you don't get my emails personally addressed to you, if your name is Bob, and you don't get an email from me that says Bob, and I welcome you to the event, make sure to put your name and email. There's a sheet where you can put that, because I'll be emailing everyone a copy of the presentation. So make sure to fill it out. Fill it out legibly. I can never read half of the people's emails. So we applied for the demo permit. Again, we ordered that fence. You need to have that. Staking the lot, and then once the house is demoed, you apply for the construction permit to build. If this was just one lot, we wouldn't have to apply for those permits separately. Again, this is a unique situation where it was a house straddling two lots. If this was just a regular house, you could just apply for everything at the same time. But since this straddled two lots, the way to speed up the process was to knock it down, then apply for the construction permit.
How did you find out that? Did you just ask?
Talking to a zoning attorney.
Oh.
So I saved you $2,000.
Okay, thank you.
And then
Checks in the mail.
Yeah. And then you got to strip the topsoil and stockpile it, stake the lot for excavation, and then excavate for the foundation.
Question?
Yep.
Why do you need to strip the topsoil?
It's for testing, and they also make you. Steve, you can probably answer this better.
Well, if you can stockpile some of it and reuse it later,
Yeah.
the good dirt as opposed to the clay or whatever's underneath. And also, when you come in final grade, you're either going to use what you were able to save from the topsoil, or you're going to bring in good black dirt, so it's nice and clean, and you can sod or seed or whatever right on top.
Yeah, so we weren't, it's not like we were, yeah, exactly. So we weren't hauling a bunch of dirt in, we were just reusing a lot of it, you know, for this house. And again, rough grade, you gotta grade the house too, so you can't like, for example, you don't wanna have where the grading, where the earth comes in this way into your house, so every time that it rains, all the water comes down into your house. So you gotta have the proper grading on the house away from the house. And then, you know, we went back to the pictures, you saw the foundation and the footings. And then before you start the framing or anything like that, you gotta get the foundation inspected. What's nice about the city of Chicago is you can order all of your inspections. Even if they're 6 months out, I can order my inspection. That's a great thing about Chicago versus some other cities, is I can order every one of my inspections today, even if my inspection is 6 months out. So if you properly use a calendar and you properly schedule things, you can have it so that way you don't have the delays on the inspections. Then you do the
When you want to put new foundations in, you were pretty close to the building next door. Are there some rules about what you have to do about that?
Yes.
So you don't collapse the house next door?
Yeah, so the city of Chicago, I believe these houses are 20 wide. So on each side of us, you have to be 2.5 feet from the lot line on each side of the house. So that's
5 feet apart.
correct, because then they're 2.5 on their
That's for
side
the
too.
foundation. What about for the hole that you dig to lay the foundation?
You're right.
Bigger than that and get closer to the building.
Correct, yeah.
Next door.
So that's why having the fencing around is very important. So that, oh, what you're saying, okay, so it doesn't exactly,
Yeah.
you don't encroach. I don't know what that is, but you're not going that much over where you're supposed to. I mean, that's more of a question, it's a good question, but that's more of a question for the person doing the excavation. You know, again, the person we're using to do that, they're the same person that did the foundation. Of course, we checked up on them and made sure that this wasn't their first rodeo. But that's a great point. You can't go too far over because then that can affect their integrity next door.
So that means homes should be 5 feet apart from each other, right?
In theory, but in Chicago, a lot of times, houses are
2.5.
are less than 2.5 feet from the lot line, so then you have to apply for variances in those cases. Or you might have to do a narrower house. You know, we've got one in Bucktown where we're building, and they're like a foot or 1.5 feet away, so we're gonna have a narrower house there than we do here.
You have to make your product narrower because they're too close to their side yard?
Correct.
Yeah, they're over their restriction, yeah.
Why is that? Why should you suffer?
And well, it's because it's for that, like the reason Jerry mentioned, the safety and the integrity of that other house.
I see a lot of homes that are really right up on top of each other.
Oh yeah, no, so, I'm trying to think, I think you, either Roscoe or Ukrainian Village, like those houses are right on top of each other.
Ravenswood, you even got north side also, Baptist Park.
No, there's a lot of areas where that's common, and so when it's really close, one of the things that they will give you variances if you do a brick structure, and so then you could be closer together versus this is a frame. So in some cases you can be a little bit closer.
Fire safe.
Fire, yeah, exactly with the drywall. Yep.
Okay, I'll get to basic stuff. What if you're gonna make a swimming pool?
I wouldn't recommend building a swimming pool in Chicago.
wouldn't
If you're, I mean, especially as investors, I wouldn't recommend doing a pool in,
Investor, but how would you
Ever.
get your own?
I don't know that.
I actually will say
I don't
that,
know that answer.
that in many cases, having a swimming pool is a liability and the house sells for less than without the swimming pool.
That is true unless you're in Scottsdale or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's why I hear,
Yes,
that's why as an
Chicago.
investor, I know nothing about,
it sells for
Oh,
less
yeah.
because it's a liability. It's
If
very
if I have a-
expensive,
If I have a pool.
Then you have to
I'm building-
winterize
very
it.
expensive, and you use it 2 months out of the year.
Oh, an indoor pool.
You
Oh,
have
yeah.
an outdoor pool at that, you should have it.
You can have it above ground, I would assume.
Yeah, but I doubt that you'll put one in this area.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, I don't know about the pool thing is something we've never encountered, and I don't think we will. Even on the high end in Lincoln Park, I don't know any houses with swimming pools in them.
They're not swimming houses, but they're apartment rental buildings with swimming pools.
Yeah, that's a
A
good
couple
point.
of them are indoor, very expensive to maintain,
Yeah.
extremely expensive.
Right.
There's just,
Right, when the deal is a little bit more.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's one of my life goals.
Yeah.
A house with an indoor.
So once you have the foundation inspection, you have the underground plumbing. So what the underground plumbing essentially is
why not move to a place that is nice and
you know, there's a
warm?
bathroom here,
And then you can have
so
one
that,
outside.
there's a bathroom, there's a laundry room here. So that,
2 months. 2 months.
you know, where the water goes, you know, when you flush the toilet, that's gotta go into a sump pump, or not a sump pump, but a solid waste pump. So they have to inspect that and make sure that that's all good and that sort of thing. And then also,
That's important.
so you have that underground plumbing, and then you have an inspection with the underground. That's separate from your
I just came back
rough
from
plumbing
Guatemala and I
inspection.
was in one of those houses like that on the beach.
Once you have that, then the
My wife is
concrete,
from Guatemala.
so the
I
foundation
just worked
is
for a couple weeks.
the walls, and then, once you have the underground plumbing in, then that's when the concrete goes down, because obviously you have everything running into the solid waste pump. You also have the rainwater that goes into the sump pump, and then once you have that drain tile system set up so it runs into the pump, then you can put the slab down for the house. Then you do the first floor framing, of course the second floor framing, and then you frame the roof. You want to get shingles up, you know, as quickly as possible. So what you want to do is try to get the house watertight as quickly as possible. You're going to have the before you start putting things in the home, then you're going to have the rough framing inspection. So the city's going to come out, make sure that the framers did what was according to the plans. So that's important. Then they're installing, again, we want to make this weather tight, so they're installing windows, restoring the by doors, we're talking exterior doors. And then, you know, again, we're getting bids while this is going on for the insulation, drywall, and tile. And again, you can bring in people to do different bids of different parts, but like insulation, some guys might even be able to bid it right off of the plans. They know, okay, this, you know, they look at the plans, they can bid it out. Some contractors need to actually come out to the house once it's framed up to give you a bid. So depending on the level of sophistication of that, that sub. Then you have the HVAC, so that's, so what that means is all the duct work, they're gonna come out. Well, this is just this is not the inspection, but we're doing the HVAC first because that's the largest. You know, the plumbing can go around the HVAC. The HVAC is the biggest thing. And the only place that we have soffits in this house is just here in the basement. So we were able to run everything in a way where we didn't have to do soffits on the first floor or the second floor.
Who does the wiring?
So that would be the electrician, which we don't bring him out yet. We bring out the plumber next.
Oh, I'm saying the wiring with the cable and the internet.
We have the electrician do it as well. So after we do the HVAC, we have the plumber come in. Once you get a good crew of guys, they can work pretty much on top of each other, meaning some guys can be working simultaneously. Sometimes it's not going to work so well. I would prefer that you have the HVAC first before you have the plumber come in. Then you get the rough HVAC inspection.
Excuse me, one more question, sorry. I don't know if this applies to you, but if you're doing a construction loan, are your disbursements tied to the inspections? Is that how they do it?
You mean for, like, let's say the plumber gets his final payment?
Well, yeah, I mean, you get your payment to pay your subs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we have many draws. So what we have is a payment schedule, and we have all of our trades listed on that, and then their exact amounts that they're getting paid. But, you know, obviously then you have a payment schedule with that electrician, that plumber, and that HVAC person, you know.
But is it always, the disbursements are after the inspections, is that how you do it?
That's how we do it. Some people might require some money at a certain point before the inspection, but we're not giving them a bunch of money until it passes.
Okay.
Because we want to make sure the work that they did, you know, that it passes. So that is correct. We want to have that. And the thing is, the way that we're scheduling our, it's like, hey, Mr. HVAC person, you got to have this done because I have the inspection on this date. If you don't have it done by this date, I'm not going to be able to pay you because we have to have this inspection done before I can pay you. So it's a way to keep guys motivated and keep them on the payment schedule, because I already have all of our inspections already ordered for the entire process as soon as we started the project.
What if you don't have the date and you're behind?
Now you can go on the City of Chicago's website and just update the dates. You can
How much
go.
time do you have to make the change?
You can make the change at any time. It's just whether they're going to have the date that you want is the question. If you do it in enough time ahead of schedule, then it's not going to be a problem. But if I need to have an HVAC inspection
24
here
hours.
tomorrow,
Yeah.
good luck. That's not going to happen. You know.
So how many days do you need to give?
Each trade is different because the city has different inspectors for different things. So some inspectors are better than others, but that's why we order ours such in advance. That the nice thing is by ordering them in advance, we're not at the mercy of the inspector because we already have that date scheduled 2, 3, 4, 5 months out.
But get there for each inspector.
For every inspection, yeah. And that's why I have in here, I changed HVAC rough and rough HVAC inspection, you know. That's separate from, you know, he does the work and then the inspection happens, obviously after the work is done, but we're letting him know, hey, on, you know, March 31st, we're having the HVAC inspected, so you need to have the rough HVAC done before the 31st.
Nice to meet you. I don't even know who it is.
Then we have the rough plumbing inspection, electrical toughs. So after those inspections, I did this presentation before you guys showed up. So the electrical rough, so they're coming in doing the rough, you know, running the conduit, that sort of thing, putting the circuit breaker box in, running the wires. They don't necessarily, you know, we're not having the light switches and that sort of thing, but the conduit's all there. And then wires are run. And then once we do that, you're going to have new water and sewer service. So that's coming from the street. So you need to have, when you're doing new construction, even if you had a water line that's going to have to be replaced, and then the same with the sewer line coming from the street. And so in order to do that, they actually need to tear up the street. And that alone is pretty expensive. No, it's like 15 to 17 grand usually
Per house.
per house.
Per house, yeah.
It's not cheap to do.
I was lucky because the main was right in the front.
Yeah, sometimes you luck out, but most of the time.
I got lucky.
You just budget 18,000, so that way you don't have any surprises. And even when you're doing a gut rehab, a lot of times you're going to have to do new water and sewer as well. Most of these houses are 100 years old. It's got a 3/4 water supply line coming in. You're going to put 3.5 bathrooms in here with body jets, and it's just not. Swimming pools, hot tubs in the basement, just can't keep up. So that's why they make you do 1.5 inches. And so one of our houses that we're doing, like in Bucktown, we're actually even going to have to do a sprinkler system. So even with the sprinkler system, we're still going to be able to do 1.5 inches. And the reason why is because we have a roof deck for extra because of that, they're making us put in the sprinkler system, but, where was I at? So new water, sewer, cleaning up the yard, you know, when they put in the water, they have to dig up the entire yard to do that. So then we have to, again, we're redoing work on the yard there, so it's safe for people to walk from the front. You've got your rough electrical inspection, then we're pouring our garage, pad and piers, framing the garage, framing the front porch, and then framing the deck in the back.
You said you're gonna talk about the decks and the porch?
Yeah, so I'll talk about that. That's a good learning experience. In the future, if we were to do this house again, we could actually shave, so like I said, from when we broke ground to, you know, what you're seeing today was about 6 months. If we can get that down just by doing this one thing differently, we'll be able to get our next project down to 5 months. Which is eliminating the front deck. Have the basement extend in front of the main floor. And then, you know, and then because what the issue is that you have the water service coming in and the sewer, you can't do that with if you have a deck there. So we can come straight to the house and the deck's already there because, you know, it's in front of the house. So that little trick right there will save you a month off your project. So in the future, if we are ever to, well, we are going to do the same type of house again, we're not having this basement will just extend, you know, a few feet where the deck is now. So.
And then the top of the basement will be the porch.
Yep, exactly.
So,
And then that also eliminates an extra inspection as well for the deck.
doesn't that, because this goes above grade in the basement, does that affect the setback requirements or not? Because now you're sticking out that much.
No, because the front of the house, because again, it's just like a deck is. So they're treating, because even if you want to build a deck on your house in the front, sometimes you can't because that's considered part of the setback as well. So our setback includes the deck. Yeah, because if we wanted to build a massive deck all the way to the sidewalk, the city wouldn't let us.
But you could build the house on the way to where the end of the deck is.
We could, exactly. Yep, because that's where that's the setback that we're allowed.
So how come you didn't do that though?
Well, we didn't know better.
Hey,
Like I said, this little trick right here
yeah.
will save a month off our project because we've eliminated this inspection here. We can run the water and sewer straight into the house. So, again, that's just a lesson we learned there. You know, these were actually our first new construction projects that we did. So, so that's how you learn sometimes, it's just by doing it. We did the roof, the shingles on the porch, and then the garage. You know, doing the siding. These siding guys were, we won't use them again. They were a little pricey, but they were quick. I mean, they had this thing sided in like a day and a half each house, and they were like ants swarming the house. I mean, they had to have like 10 guys on each house. These guys knocked it out of the park as far as timeline is concerned.
That's why it's pricey.
Yeah, but you can find, we've got, I think for the future, we've got a better, that's not necessarily as aggressive on his timeline, but we'll do, and some of the stuff we gotta have fixed too.
Especially if you save a month by doing it the other way next time.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the thing is, doing the siding isn't necessarily, because we can do the siding at certain points, it's not gonna delay necessarily the inside either. So, you know, exterior, the nice thing is that's not going to delay what you're
You
necessarily
get it done
doing.
at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. The workers aren't there. Some workers are outside, some are in.
The thing is, you do want to finish up the outside before.
Well, you do want to make it watertight, but you do what you see.
Before winter.
What you see is the Tyvek wrap around, and then that's watertight at that point. So without even the siding being up yet.
Right.
So it's fine that if the siding gets done a little later, then that's okay. So we're doing the insulation, hanging the drywall, mudding and sanding the drywall. Again, another thing you want to consider is where you have a temperature controlled environment to do that, because if you're trying to do mudding and you've got a lot of humidity in the house, it's going to take a long time for the mud to dry. Then you got to run heaters and that sort of thing. So trying to have a climate controlled property as quickly as possible is important. Priming the walls, then you're doing the hardwood. Most people here know you want to have hardwood sit in the house at least a week, again in a climate controlled environment before you install it, because otherwise the wood may expand or contract. And then, like if you've ever gone into a house and the floor is wavy, many times when you see that, it's because they didn't let the wood, either they installed it when the furnace and the air conditioner weren't going, and then the wood expanded. So you want to do it when it's dry, and otherwise you may have issues with the flooring down the line. And then fence, what I mean by fence is getting rid of the temporary fence and then putting up the permanent fence. Then we're installing cabinets and vanities, doing the tiling. Once the cabinets or vanities are in, you can do the countertop measure after those are in. Install stairs. We have temporary stairs during the entire project, obviously, but the final stairs are being done at this point. And then once you do the stairs, then you're going to have to redo some of the drywall as well, because it's going to affect that. So the drywallers are going to have to come back and do some touch-ups there. Then you're doing interior trim and doors, so your baseboard trim, you trim around the doors, the interior doors, installing the countertops, doing the tile backsplash, kitchen, sand stain, and seal the hardwood. The hardwood upstairs, we're still going to do another final clear coat on that, just so you know. We typically don't do that until the very end, because when you have people, I'm having these meetings here, you've got all these people coming in, coming out. We don't like doing that final clear coat until the very end, because the hardwood might get little dings and that sort of thing. So we wait at the very end to do that final clear coat. Installing the, so that's why the hardwood, like I said, upstairs is not completely finished. Installing the walkways and sidewalks. Prep paint, doing the finished electrical, finished plumbing, so that means your light switches. Finished plumbing means your faucets that turn on and off, your shower heads, your kitchen sink or the kitchen faucet, all those things. Finished HVAC, so that means having the grates that you can see there. Having the permanent thermostats. We're not putting the Nest thermostats while we've got construction debris going around. Those thermostats are $300 a piece.
Did you do a
dual zone? Yeah, so I think once you go above 2,600 square feet,
that's right.
I think that's where you need to have two separate systems.
It's also a great selling point.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you try to have one furnace and one air conditioner to do the whole house, you're going to have inconsistencies in the temperature. Then you have hardware installed. So what that means is like doorknobs, holes on the cabinets. You have your final HVAC inspection, and you have your final plumbing inspection. Your final new construction inspection, your final electrical inspection, your exterior landscaping, so putting the sod in the front, in the back. We're not going to do sod, that's too expensive. So, that's all grass seed back there. Your final punch list, cleaning, and again, we're going to be cleaning this multiple times as we have a bunch of people through here. Final walkthrough, and then of course staging, is very important to, in my opinion, to sell a house. So what's nice about this too is having the two houses next to each other. We can save money on staging by only staging one house. So some ninja tricks, ninja tips for you guys is, we talked about it, have this basement on the front come out further. So we eliminate that front porch, which we can bring in the sewer and the water supply directly into the house. Another thing we can do is eliminate that back deck by doing a staircase in the back of the home. Again, these deck inspections, porch inspections are just delays. We can get rid of that. So when you come in, you've got like a nice, because who wants to climb a deck in the back when you've got a bunch of groceries and there's, 2 feet of snow on the ground. So people would prefer to go up steps once they're inside the home in a climate controlled environment. So again, we're eliminating that back deck. And then you can just do like a nice stamped concrete or a brick paver, but there's no permits needed for that. If the house is sitting on 2 lots, we talked about it, knock the house down first, then you apply for the new construction permit. And then use quality commercial subcontractors. So what I mean by that is I'm not looking for the electrician that's going to come into a house and to change this light switch is going to charge me $300. Now, I'm not looking for that because there's 2 kinds of electricians, plumbers, HVAC people. It's the same thing. There's the people that come in and they're more homeowner, like, oh, I want you to add a socket in this room. Okay, I can do that for you. It's $600. That's not who I'm looking for. I'm looking for somebody who wants to come in, do the entire house. It's a different thing because when you go and you talk to the commercial guys which do entire houses, a lot of times they don't even want to talk to me because they think I'm a homeowner and I have to explain right away. No, I'm an investor, I'm a builder. I want you to come. Oh, okay, great. I'd love to build it. They don't even want to work for homeowners, and vice versa. The ones that work for homeowners don't want to do an entire house. They're, in my opinion, they're lazy. But it's, I want the guys that come in and do the volume, and I consider them more of a commercial grade contractor than a homeowner contractor.
May I ask how much is for 1 point about the electrician?
Well, usually, I'm trying to think.
Or they really quote out the whole house?
They quote out the whole house based on.
Regardless how many points are they?
Well, they built that into their price.
Okay, can you have some idea about how much is it for 1 point?
Well, again, if they came in and they just were gonna do 5, it would be very expensive because it's all their time to come there versus them coming in and doing 100.
Yeah, see for 100, how much is it?
I don't want to misquote you. Yeah. Yeah, we have a lot of numbers here, but in every you gotta realize that you could have subs come in here, and one sub's price might be double that of another sub. So that's where getting multiple bids on every trade is important. So every single trade that we have, that I went through this entire list, we had 3, that was our goal, to have at least 3 people bid it out. And if pricing was much higher than we expected, we kept bringing in more subs.
What would you say the cost per square foot was to build this?
So you're looking at, if you were to hire a builder, probably you would have paid anywhere between like $130 to $135. We did it in-house. It'll probably be a little over $100 a square. But that's not including like certain costs that we have. Like for example, we have all those subs, but that's not including like, we gotta have somebody in here keeping the job site clean and that sort of thing too. So you have a lot of costs above that as well. So it's all said and done, maybe 110 to 120. So, and I think the more we do, we're gonna keep getting, for example, our plumber who was awesome, he bid it out our next job. It's pretty much the same house. He was even cheaper than he did for these 2 houses, even though that's a single. Because the more work we give him, he's gonna keep giving us better pricing. So the more work you do, for example, the siding guys, we can get new siding guys now. That'll be much you know, much more cost effective. So we'll be saving money on that. So there's a lot of ways that we could save money and get those costs down.
It seems that this involves so much work. You still think this is still better than rehab?
Well, with rehabbing, you're doing everything that I talked about anyway, just minus the foundation, right? Meaning, and of course, tearing down the old house. So, gut rehabbing, a lot of people, you know, have this idea, well, I want to gut rehab and I can, you know, this is going to be great, I'm not going to do any work. There's a lot of work with gut rehab. You know, there's all the steps we went through are pretty much the same, just minus that first slide, which is the initial work. But the nice thing is, the subs enjoy this a lot more, and then the speed you can go at is a lot quicker, in my opinion, because it's a clean slate. You don't have any surprises. So, whether you're going to gut rehab or new construction, yes, it is a lot of work, but this compared to gut rehabbing is less work.
Question. Number 2 up there, staircase in the back. Make sure I understand this. What is that back deck? Are you doing this to save money, you mean?
Well, no. Partly, and then partly to eliminate an extra inspection with the back deck too. So the staircase would be all the way in the back of the house. So you would come in through the back door. Then you have the steps go this way. You go down. That'll go into the basement. You'll have like a cubby thing here. Like you'll see a lot of these houses in Chicago. If you go to the right, you'll go up, and then you'll be on the main floor.
So this particular house will have to be about 5 feet longer, right? Because otherwise, you lose space in your kitchen and your bedroom.
You would. We would move the kitchen to the middle of the house. Is what we would do.
Completely different.
Yeah. Which that's what most floor plans in Chicago are now, is where the kitchens are actually in the middle. So that's what we're doing on our next project, is where the kitchen will actually be in the middle. And then it's nice because then you have like a separate living room. So it's not as open as this floor plan, but that's the floor plan that people like now. It's still an open floor plan, it's just a little bit more divided with a family room and then a back area as well. So that's what we'll be doing in the future, is putting the kitchen, you know, right in the middle of the house. And then by doing the staircase in the back, what you'll be able to do by eliminating the staircase too, a lot of times you'll see where you have 2 bedrooms versus, so you'll have 2 bedrooms in the basement versus having 1.